In 1875, a blacksmith named Elias Morse in Bangor, Maine, made everything his town needed to survive. 600 horseshoes a week, 40 pounds of nails a day, axe heads, chain links, door hinges, plow blades, wagon tires, and surgical instruments for the town doctor, all from raw iron bars, all by hand, all by one man with a hammer, an anvil, and a forge. Every tool, every nail, every hinge in America was made this way, by hand, one at a time, until the factories came and Elias Morse and 200,000 blacksmiths like him disappeared from American life forever. I've been through the Bangor Town records, the assessor's ledger from 1874, the Penobscot County census, a water-stained account book from Morse's shop that somebody rescued out of a barn in Hampton in 1962 and put in a cardboard box at the Historical Society, where it has sat on a shelf ever since. Elias Morse was born in 1829 in a farmhouse outside Orono. His father was a cooper. He apprenticed at the age of 12 to a smith named Jedediah Pratt, who beat him when he misstruck a weld and fed him when nobody else would. By 1850, Elias Morse had his own shop on Exchange Street. By 1875, he had a wife named Lucretia, 4 living children, 2 buried in Mount Hope Cemetery, and a reputation from Searsport to Millinocket as the man you went to when you needed something that had to hold. A ship's anchor chain, a logger's peavey, the iron strapping on a powder keg. He worked from 4 in the morning until dark, 6 days a week, and he charged fairly, and he never let a tool leave the shop until it was right. If you care about the trades that built this country, the real ones, the ones done by men whose names are on no monument, please subscribe to Global Old History right now. This channel is for the forgotten work, the forgotten tools, the forgotten hands. Hit the button, stay with me, because I want to tell you how a man like Elias Morse made a town run, and I want to tell you what happened when the machines came for him. Here's the thing most Americans do not understand about the country before 1900. Nothing that was made of metal came out of a box. Nothing. Not a nail, not a horseshoe, not a hinge on your grandmother's kitchen cabinet, not the latch on the barn door, not the buckle on your belt, not the fork you ate your supper with. Every piece of iron and steel in daily use in America was shaped, one piece at a time, by a man standing in front of a coal fire with a hammer in his hand. And there were a lot of those men. In 1860, the United States Census counted more than 150,000 blacksmiths. By 1870, the number was closer to 200,000. Every town of 300 souls had at least one. Bigger towns had 5 or 6. The city of Philadelphia alone had over 800 working smiths in 1880. You could not build a wagon without a blacksmith. You could not plow a field without a blacksmith. You could not shoe a horse, roof a barn, hang a gate, sharpen a scythe, or bury your dead without a blacksmith. He made the coffin nails too. The forge itself was the heart of the operation. A brick firebox, low to the ground, with a hearth lined in clay and a chimney hood of sheet iron. Under the fire, a tuyere, which is a short iron pipe that forces air into the coals from a hand-cranked or foot-pumped bellows. Good bituminous coal, coked down first to drive off the sulfur, then stacked tight around the work. The fire ran somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 degrees. Iron goes red at 1,300, orange at 1,500, and white at 2,000. A smith learned to read that color the way a farmer reads weather. A working forge burned through 3,000 pounds of coal a week. That is 1.5 tons of fuel just to keep one shop going. The coal came in by wagon from the Pennsylvania fields or up the coast from Virginia, and every smith had a coal bin out back that he filled twice a year. The bellows itself was a leather and wood lung 4 feet long, and a boy turned the crank for 8 hours a day in exchange for a pallet in the loft and a plate of beans at noon. I want you to think about the nails first, because the nails are the thing that breaks people's minds when I explain it. Before 1790, every single nail in America was made by hand, one at a time. A nailer would take a square iron rod, heat one end, cut off a short length, hold it in a header die, and drive a head on it with 4 or 5 hammer blows. A skilled nailer could make 1,000 nails a day. A whole barn took 30,000 nails. A modest house took 50,000. And every one of them was forged by a man bent over a little anvil in a back shed, working by firelight. Elias Morse did not make nails himself anymore by 1875. By then, the cut nail machines out of Wheeling, West Virginia were flooding the country, and hand nails were a luxury item. But he made 40 pounds of specialty nails a day for the shipyards along the Penobscot. Ship nails, deck spikes, clinch nails for the planking, each one headed by hand, because a machine-cut nail would split the green oak. Now, the horseshoes. 600 shoes a week coming out of the Morse shop in the busy seasons. That is 100 a day, 6 days a week, and that is just the shoes themselves, not the fitting, not the shoeing of the horse, which was its own labor. Each shoe was drawn out from a length of bar stock, shaped over the horn of the anvil, punched for the nails while still red, creased for the fit, and then set aside to cool. A journeyman could forge a shoe in 4 minutes if the fire was right. Elias Morse could do it in 3. And because this is where the trade started to change, and I have to tell you about Henry Burden, born in Scotland in 1791, came to Troy, New York in 1819 with nothing but a letter of introduction and an engineering mind that would not stop turning. He ran the Troy Iron and Nail Factory on the Wynantskill, using the creek's fall to drive a water wheel that spun his trip hammers and his rollers. In 1835, he patented a machine that could draw out horseshoes from hot bar stock almost automatically. By 1857, after 20 years of refinement, he had the machine the old smiths feared. Burden's 1857 horseshoe machine could produce 60 finished horseshoes per minute. 60 a minute. One machine, tended by 2 men, could match the output of 600 blacksmiths working flat out. During the Civil War, Burden's mill in Troy made every horseshoe worn by a Union cavalry horse. 70 million shoes over 4 years. The Confederacy sent spies into Troy to try to steal the design. They never managed it. The machine was bolted to the bedrock of the Wynantskill Gorge and guarded day and night. That was the first wound to the village blacksmith. Not the killing blow yet. A farmer in Bangor in 1875 still brought his team to Elias Morse because Burden's machine-made shoes came in standard sizes, and a working horse needs a shoe fitted to its particular foot. But every year the standard shoes got better, and every year the work of fitting got simpler, and every year fewer young men apprenticed to the trade. Before I tell you about the other men, I need you to do something for me. If this channel matters to you, if these stories are the kind of history you grew up hearing from a grandfather or an uncle, just hit that subscribe button, one click. The algorithm buries old trade videos unless you tell it to stop. So tell it. Then come back because I want to introduce you to 2 more blacksmiths I pulled out of the old shop records, and a third whose story still sits in me the wrong way. The second blacksmith I want to name is Isaac Tremblay of Berlin, New Hampshire, born in 1842 in a French-Canadian settlement up on the Quebec border. Came south after the Civil War with a wife named Adele and 3 sons. He set up a shop on Main Street in Berlin in 1868, in a town that was still more logging camp than town, and for the next 31 years, he made every chain, every PV head, every cant hook, every crosscut saw wedge, every axe eye, and every boom dog that the White Mountain loggers needed to put spruce on the Androscoggin River. Tremblay specialized in chain. Logging chain is not ordinary chain. Each link has to hold against a 40-ton log bucking sideways on a skid road, and a single weak weld will snap under load and kill somebody. Tremblay's method was slow and jealous. He heated each link individually, scarfed the ends on a bevel, hammer welded them closed at a white heat with a pinch of sand flux, and tested every 10th link by hanging a loaded ore cart on it in the yard. His chain sold for twice the price of factory chain out of Pittsburgh, and the camp foreman paid it because his chains did not break. Isaac Tremblay had 4 fingers on his left hand. He lost the index in 1881 when a hot link slipped out of his tongs and pinned his hand against the anvil. He wrapped it, drank a cup of whiskey, and was back at the fire in the morning. He died in 1899 of what the doctor called the Smith's lung, a condition we would now call pulmonary fibrosis, caused by 30 years of breathing coal smoke and iron scale in a shop with no ventilation. He was 57. His shop was sold to the American Steel and Wire Company, who tore down the forge and put up a chain link fence factory on the same lot. The third man is harder to tell. His name was Moses Freeman. He was born into slavery in Caroline County, Virginia, in 1836. He learned the trade from the plantation blacksmith, a man called Uncle Cyrus, who taught him to read the color of iron by age 10. Freeman escaped in 1861 during the first months of the war, made his way north to Philadelphia, and by 1865 he had opened his own shop on South Street in the 7th Ward. He called it Freeman's Forge. And for the next 28 years, he made the finest ornamental ironwork in Philadelphia. Walk through the old neighborhoods of Philadelphia today, and the iron railings in front of the brownstones on Pine Street and Spruce Street, the balconies on the old hotels on Walnut, the boot scrapers set in the stone steps, a lot of that came out of Moses Freeman's shop. He forged acanthus leaves and Corinthian scrolls that you would swear had been cast in a foundry. They were not cast. He drew them out of bar stock with a hammer and a set of specialty swatches he had made for himself. He trained 4 black apprentices who went on to open their own shops. He paid them a fair wage. He died in 1893 of pneumonia, and he is buried in Eden Cemetery, and the iron gate at the entrance of Eden Cemetery is his work. Here is the part that I think gets lost now. In every frontier settlement in America, from the Mohawk Valley in 1750 to the Oregon Territory in 1855, the blacksmith was the first tradesman the settlers hired. Before the minister, before the schoolmaster, before the doctor, because you could not farm without the smith. You could not build without the smith. If your plow broke in April, you did not get a crop in October, and if you did not get a crop in October, your children did not eat in February. The smith's shop was the first permanent building in a new town, as often as the general store. A roof, 3 walls, and a forge. The smith slept on a pallet behind the anvil until he could afford to build a cabin. He traded his work for chickens, for flour, for a side of bacon, for a silver dollar if anybody had one. His ledger was a cloth-covered book kept with a stub of pencil. Half the entries were crossed out with the word paid, and the other half were crossed out with the word gone, meaning the customer had moved on without settling up, and the smith had eaten the loss. A day in a shop like Elias Morse's went like this. Up at 4, fire banked from the night before, coaxed back to life with fresh coal and the bellows. By 5, the forge was at welding heat. The first customer was usually a farmer with a broken plowshare or a harness buckle that had snapped on the road. He waited while the smith drew the metal out, welded the break, tempered the edge, and rehung the piece. Cash or barter? Next customer. By noon, the shop floor was ankle-deep in iron scale, the flaky black skin that flies off hot metal under the hammer. The smith broke for 10 minutes, drank cold well water, ate bread and cheese standing up, and went back to the fire. Afternoon was often horseshoeing work. A farmer might bring a team of 4, and that was 2 hours of bending under a 1,000-pound animal, pulling old shoes, trimming the hoof with a sharp knife, fitting the new shoe while it was still hot enough to char the horn, and nailing it on with 6 nails per shoe set at exactly the right angle, so the points came out clean on the side of the hoof without going into the quick. A blacksmith could shoe 8 horses in a day if the horses behaved. A kicker could cost him a rib or a kneecap. Every old smith I have read about limped. In the evening, after the customers went home, the smith worked on stock. Nails for the next day, a batch of hinges for the lumberyard. A set of tongs to replace a pair that had cracked at the rivet. Candles burned in the shop until 10. The boy turned the bellows until his arms failed. Then everybody went home, and in 6 hours, the smith was back at the fire again. Which brings me to the grief. Because the trade did not die all at once, it died slow over about 40 years, and the men who had spent their whole lives at the anvil watched it go. The cut nail machine came first, in the 1790s. By 1830, hand-forged nails were gone except for specialty work. The horseshoe machine came in 1857, and Burden's factory in Troy took the cavalry market during the Civil War and never gave it back. The American Axe and Tool Company consolidated in 1889 and began producing factory axe heads at a fraction of the hand-forged price. Stanley Works in New Britain, Connecticut, and was stamping hinges by the 10,000 by 1870. Sears and Roebuck shipped a wagon load of factory hardware to any railroad siding in America, for the price of a few cents postage. The village smith could not compete on price. He could compete on quality for a while because factory iron was often brittle and factory steel was often badly tempered. But by 1900, even that advantage was gone. The Bessemer process had made steel cheap and uniform. The drop forge and the trip hammer had made production fast. The catalog had made distribution universal. A farmer in Kansas could order a plow in January and have it on his porch in February, and he did not need Elias Morse in Bangor to make it for him. By 1920, fewer than 10,000 working blacksmiths remained in the United States, from 200,000 at the peak, on down to 10,000 in 60 years. Most of the shops closed quietly. The smith grew old, his back gave out, his son went to work in a factory in Lowell or Lynn or Worcester, and nobody took over the forge. The fire went cold. The anvil was sold for scrap. The tools were parceled out to neighbors or buried in a backshed pile that the grandchildren cleared out in 1955 and sent to the dump. Elias Morse hung on until 1897. The ledger in Hampton shows his income dropping every year from 1880 forward. By 1890, he was down to about a third of what he had made in 1875. By 1895, he was mostly fixing things rather than making them, sharpening scythes, repairing broken harness, resetting wagon tires. Two of his sons went to work at the Penobscot shipyards. The third went to Lowell and ran a textile loom. Elias kept the fire going 6 days a week until the morning he could not lift his right arm. He died that winter of pneumonia. He was 68. The Bangor paper ran a 2-line notice: no obituary. One more ask, and then I will finish. If you are still here, please subscribe. This is a small channel telling big stories, and the only reason I can keep finding men like Elias Morse and Isaac Tremblay and Moses Freeman is because people like you tell the algorithm these lives are worth remembering. One click. Thank you. Here is the thing I come back to. The blacksmith was not just a craftsman, he was the central nervous system of a town. When the smith closed his shop, something left the place that never came back. The general store stayed open, the church stayed open, the school stayed open. But the center of daily mechanical life, the place where you went when a thing broke, that center was gone. You sent away for a new one now. You threw the old one out. And I think that is the real thing we lost. Not the skill, though the skill was extraordinary, and we will not see it again at that scale in this country. What we lost was the expectation that a thing could be mended, that a broken hinge could be welded, that a cracked axe head could be drawn out and retempered, that the world around you was made of objects that a man in your town could understand, could repair, could remake if he had to. That is the world the blacksmith held together with his hands. And when he went, that world went with him. I drove through Bangor last fall. Exchange Street is still there. The building that housed Elias Morse's shop is still there too. Though the forge is long gone and the first floor is a sandwich place with plate glass and fluorescent lights. There's no plaque. Nobody at the sandwich counter has heard the name Elias Morse. The anvil that sat in that shop for 47 years is, as far as I can determine, somewhere in a private collection in Vermont. The bellows rotted in a damp barn in the 1930s. The ledger is in its cardboard box. Nobody goes to see the anvil now. Nobody could, even if they wanted to. The smith who struck it lies in Mount Hope Cemetery under a stone so worn by 130 winters of Maine weather that you have to rub your thumb across the letters to read the name. 200,000 blacksmiths. Every nail, every horseshoe, every hinge in America. For 150 years, they held the country together at the joints. And then the machines came. And the catalogs came, and the forges went cold one by one, and the men who had spent their lives reading The Color of Hot Iron walked home in the evening one last time and did not come back in the morning. That is the story of the American blacksmith. Elias Morse of Bangor, Isaac Tremblay of Berlin, Moses Freeman of Philadelphia, and 200,000 more whose names are in no book, whose shops are in no museum, whose work is buried in the hinges of old barns and the nails of old ships and the gates of old cemeteries where nobody stops to look. I'm glad you stayed. Tell me in the comments if one of your own people worked at the anvil. A great-grandfather, a great-uncle. The old man in a photograph nobody can quite place. I read every comment. I will see you in the next one.